In this demo, we are going to look at creating a recipe screen which is taller or has more content than the current viewport will display. So basically, instead of scrolling from viewport to viewport full height, we're just going to have content areas that will exceed the current viewport height. So to do this, let's go ahead and select one of our next available sections here, and that will be this section, and I'm going to change this class name to recipe because I'm no longer having like multiple recipes. We're going to do the demonstration just with one recipe page with a taller height. So let's go ahead and get rid of the H1 here, and let's go ahead and add a comment. All right, so this will create pages which are taller than the current viewport's height. All right, let's go ahead and get our code, and we'll place our code inside like so. And I'll have to tab these over correctly just real quick here. Okay, so our section is going to use the class recipe. Of course, you can make up your own classes. And then inside this section, now remember the section, if we take a look here, the section is set to a min width of 100 viewport width and a height of 100 viewport height, and the scroll snap align is set to start. Okay, so now we're creating a div inside with recipe child screen. And again, you can make up your own class. And then I just have an H1 and I have some P tags. This is just going to represent some content so we can see that the page actually becomes taller than the available viewport height, and we can scroll inside that page. All right, so let's go ahead and get our recipe. So let's scroll down in our CSS. So we'll get our recipe CSS. And I just have the comment here, longer recipe pages. If you have a recipe page which is longer than the 100 viewport height, add this class section. Okay, and again, you can rename these. All right. So once you create or you add this to the element which is your section, then you will add the rule which is the child screen. So let's just take a quick look at our recipe. We're going to scroll snap type is Y, so we'll be on the Y axis. Again, we're going to have it mandatory that it will snap to the top. The flex direction is, the display is flex. The flex direction is column, again, so they lay out vertically. And then again, we add our WebKit overflow scrolling to touch. Overflow Y will be set to scroll. And then I just added a background color just so we can see it. Okay, so this is now targeting the section. All right, so the section has some CSS styling to it, setting the viewport width and the height. And then the class recipe is the one that sets this to flex and column. All right, now let's take a look at our next rule here. And now we're dealing with our class recipe child screen, which is the div inside the section. Okay, and we're setting the position to relative, the minimum width to 100 viewport width. The minimum height is auto. And that way the height will be based off of however much content you have in your recipe or in the screen. Scroll, snap, align, start. All right. Now let's just add a couple rules, one for the H1 and one for the P, just to create some space that we can scroll through. So I'm just going to add two rules, one which targets the H1, one which targets the P. And we're just adding some margin to the top and the bottom. Okay, so let's go ahead and save, and let's see what we have here. All right, so we're going to update, and we should have our list, which we can scroll through. Okay, then we should have our recipe longer example, and you'll notice that we can scroll through this way. Okay, and then when we go to the next page or the next screen, when we go back, it's being kind of finicky here, I'm going too fast. All right, so there's our list on that side, which we could scroll through. We can go to the longer page. All right, and then we should be able to go to our next pages, and they won't scroll. Okay, now as I mentioned before, it's because of this top header part that CodePen's putting in. If I look at this in, I'm just using a preview from a Dreamweaver. So basically, this just has some more content in it, but basically that's just showing content in the first list. There's list 2. But then if I have this one actually set a little further away. There's our longer page. And you'll notice when we don't have that CodePen part up there, the page behaves as it should. Okay? All right, so adding screens which allow you to have content which is taller than the current viewport height.